Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. You know the drill. I mercilessly, relentlessly, and justifiably mock some guy who has the audacity to use my last name. It has now been 257 days, my word, that's a long time, since Inauguration Day. Yeah, that's 36 weeks since Donald has dragged this country kicking and screaming into its golden age. Our Renaissance period, if you will. I mean, that is if Renaissance is a synonym for, I don't know, hell. So, what has happened since this bold proclamation that America finally is redeemed? Well, it's it's complete and utter nonsense. Just in the last couple of weeks, one embarrassment after another, culminating in the shutdown of the United States government. Well done, little guy. Well done. Donald is successful at very few things, but he really is running this country like one of his miserably failed businesses. I'd say, if there's a God, she's probably crying her eyes out, but like all Democrats, I'm a Satanist. I don't talk about God. But as the shutdown rolls on and Donald digs in and hides from the American people, every farmer, every teacher, indeed, every working person in this country who's wondering where their next paycheck is coming from is turning to the one man who has his fingers on the pulse of what truly matters to any of us who is struggling during these dark times. And who would that be, you might be asking? Well, I think it's evident on its face. It's Donald's moronic adult son, Eric Trump, also known as Eric Frederick. Because not only does he know how to solve all our problems, he really cares.
With wire transfer, payment that's coming into one of the hotels or leaving one of the hotels. And if you don't send it by 4 o'clock on a Friday, it's not getting there until like Monday afternoon. And you're sitting there saying, why can I send hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin overseas instantly or receive it instantly with virtually no fees?
Thank goodness somebody is on this problem we all have. The idea that a transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars takes 3 whole days, this is unacceptable. It's un-American. Once we can solve that problem, I'm sure all of us will be able to rest easy. Thanks, Eric. Thank you for really understanding what is most important to the American people, for understanding and, again, caring as only you can about the well-being of the vast majority of the American people. While we're on the subject of whatever that was, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, let's be real, Donald picked him for a reason. Since July, every solar and wind project over the hundreds of millions of acres Burgum's department oversees needs his personal sign-off in order to proceed. One man now has the power to greenlight America's biggest renewable energy initiatives or not. Given the fact that his boss has an unreasoning phobia of windmills, I mean, Donald actually hates windmills with the passion of 1,000 white-hot suns. Do we really think that Burgum is going to be in a hurry to approve any of these projects? Let's hear what he had to say this week.
There was just a report out. All of these European wind companies, they've had a wind drought. People accept the fact that now some years it rains more than it does others. Some years the wind blows more than it does others. All of those European companies are reporting earnings below expectations because the wind didn't blow as hard this summer as they expected it to do.
It's just fascinating to me the ease with which these people are willing to appear utterly stupid. Wind varies. Yes, some years wind blows more, some it blows less. If only we had a way to store energy. Oh, we do. The industry actually prepares for such eventualities and leans on things like, I don't know, batteries. So a weak season, in other words, a season in which wind doesn't blow as much or as hard as it does other seasons, might hurt profits in the short term, but that does not mean that wind power itself doesn't work. If there are any other questions about where the Trump regime is going when it comes to renewables, let's take a look at Donald's pick to lead the Department of Energy, Chris Wright. This is a man who doesn't even know how to pronounce the word nuclear. He allegedly has answers we've all been looking for, as well as a clear-eyed look towards the future. I have no doubt that that's the case. So let's listen and learn and lose some brain cells in the process.
Breaking news for us this morning. Tell us.
Yes, Maria, we're announcing today expanded programs to help the American coal industry. And we're helping it just because for years it's been under assault. It was out of fashion with the Chardonnay set in San Francisco, Boulder, Colorado, and New York City, where I just was at Climate Week. But it's critical to America's industrial might, not just for electricity, as you mentioned. It's our third largest source of electricity after natural gas and nuclear. Coal just makes the world go round. And they've tried to strangle it, particularly the Biden administration, starting with the Obama administration. But coal's got a long future. As long as the lives of anyone alive today, let's stop pretending it's going away, or stop wishing it was going away.
I wish he would go away. Yeah, we fancy coastal liberals just hate air pollution. Oh, my word. The extent to which the Trump regime embraces dirty coal and natural gas at the expense of renewables and clean energy is alarming. It is exactly the opposite of what should be happening right now. The United States of America should be leading the charge against energy that is creating more pollution, increasing greenhouse gases, and thereby increasing the risks from catastrophic climate change. But no, Donald is afraid of windmills. There is, of course, always a lot of blame to go around in Washington, D.C., but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has his villain, and he cannot be dissuaded, no matter what. Before I get to the clip, I just want to share with you my belief that Bessent is the product of artificial intelligence, because there's no way this guy is for real. So I want you to be the judge. Watch this.
Joe, to go back on the ag purchases and President Trump's phase one trade deal that was signed in January 2020, there were over 50 billion of ag purchases. The Chinese followed through during President Trump's term in 2020. And then under President Biden, their feet were not held to the fire for these ag purchases. And at the meeting in Geneva, when I asked them, why didn't you continue buying soybeans and the other products, they had one word. Guess what it was? Biden.
Biden. Oh, that sounds like malarkey. Come on, man. All right, Treasury Secretary.
Biden. So, let's just get this straight. The reason China isn't buying soybeans from the United States now isn't because of Donald's unwarranted and unconstitutional and insane trade war, including his tariffs. Nope. Just like the war on coal, it's all Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden, who has not been in office for almost 11 months now, or 10 months rather, is somehow nefariously, retroactively screwing all of this up, even though Donald promised us that on day one, inflation would plummet, prices would go down, job numbers would increase, and that tariffs would bring in billions and billions and trillions and gazillions of dollars, and farmers would be making more money than they ever had. Well, guess what? None of that's happening, and it's Donald's fault, not Joe Biden's. So let's move on, shall we? Because the shutdown of the government is in its fourth day, and the Trump regime is using this as an excuse to threaten more punishments to Democrats and their constituents with massive layoffs and funding cuts to much-needed programs, as well as infrastructure projects, as if only Democrats are affected by these things. It is indeed with a heavy heart that Republicans are going to fire people, slash funding for essential programs, and pause indefinitely infrastructure projects that will make people's lives better, all because Democrats were mean to Donald. They don't want to do it. But as Mike Johnson explained to reporters this week, OMB director and Project 2025 author, the execrable Nazi Russ Vought, doesn't revel in it at all.
And he doesn't want to do it. But in this scenario, what they have to do is make very difficult decisions. Most of the responsibility falls to Russ Vought. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as you know. Whomever is seated in the chair at OMB during a shutdown has to do the same thing. Russ does this reluctantly. We had a 45-minute telephone conference with him yesterday. He talked to all the House Republicans. He takes no pleasure in this because Russ has to sit down and decide, because he's in charge of that office, which policies, personnel, and which programs are essential and which are not. That is not a fun task, and he is not enjoying that responsibility.
He doesn't enjoy it? That little creep gets off on it. The guy who wrote the fascist playbook 2025, Project 2025, knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly where this was heading. This is exactly where he wanted it to head. So I would love to ask Mike Johnson a question that he wouldn't answer, but let's just throw it out there anyway. How much funding is being cut from ICE? Yeah, there you go. Utah Senator Mike Lee has a slightly different viewpoint from Johnson's. So let's see who we can believe. I mean, they're both Republicans, so I would be inclined to believe neither of them. But let's see what Mike Lee has to say.
But this is what they're doing. They're doing it deliberately. It's going to harm them because Russ Vought, the OMB director, has been dreaming about this moment, preparing this moment since puberty. Russ Vought has a plan, and that plan is going to succeed in further empowering Trump. This is going to be the Democrats' worst nightmare, and it's of their own making.
Yeah. But there may be some hope after all. I mean, there is always hope, right? There always has to be hope. So the clock may actually be ticking on the Trump regime, or at least on its ability to punish the half of the country that, probably greater than half of the country, that refuses to capitulate to Donald. So now I want to watch Speaker Johnson explain to Fox TV's Laura Ingraham that the Republicans must win in the midterms or something bad might happen, which is fascinating because the bad is already happening, isn't it? So let's find out what Johnson could possibly mean.
Speaker Johnson, you have a very, very, very narrow majority. At a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that the Republicans build on this very slim majority next year?
We're going to win the midterms, absolutely. We're going to have a big victory, and I think we can expand that majority so we can keep going. We have to give President Trump 4 years and not 2. Imagine if the Democrats took over the House, they'd impeach him.
They're getting ready for the investigations. They're already ramping it up.
Exactly.
Speaker Johnson, thanks for coming in.
Oh, truer words. It's fascinating. Even a broken, lying, mendacious clock tells the truth twice a day. Sometimes. Yeah, there will be investigations. There will be an impeachment. Why? Because Democrats, like Republicans, like to make shit up? No, because of all of the criminality and grifting and treason. That's why. I, for one, look forward to it. All right. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. Please give us a like and share the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and we will see you again back here next week.